about the campaign. I thank you for joining this young professional hangout. I'm going to repeat again, Bill Cassidy and a young professional hangout, Google Hangout. And our whole goal of doing this is a couple things. One, we need your assistance as we connect to people across the state. There are huge issues for our state and for our country, but I'll also say, man, particularly for folks who are kind of entering their peak earning years, young professionals, if you will. I think that the stakes are particularly high for you. Man, you can see I got gray hair, so I could ease on out and almost be held harmless if that's possible by Obama's agenda and that which Senator Landrieu has supported. But it's actually for y'all and those younger, I think stakes are particularly high. The other thing we want to do is use new media as much as possible to connect with folks. Obviously, you use this in your business. We're going to be using it here. So, one, let's have a conversation. Two, I will even at the outset, though, say that if you can help us extend our social media reach, that helps. Whether it is by Facebook, Twitter, or website, however you can help us with that social media outreach, we appreciate. And I will have to leave in a little bit. There's an amendment on the floor that would increase the amount of money Louisiana gets from the Outer Continental Shelf revenue sharing from $500 billion to $500 million to $1 billion. So as you might guess, that's important for our state. And I'll have to leave in a little bit, at which point Joel will give kind of an update on the campaign. And one more thing, if you want to be involved and don't know how to, and just for those who are on the Hangout, this is also being broadcast on YouTube, so I'll say a few things that you know. That if you want to get involved, again, our Facebook page, facebook.com/Bill Cassidy. Twitter feed is twitter.com/Bill Cassidy. Website is billcassidy.com. And if you'd like to be involved, you can email at getinvolved@billcassidy.com. That said, let me see what questions, comments y'all have. I have John here making sure I handle everything correctly. So you may see him kind of move in and move out. And would like to hear your thoughts or questions about the campaign. Gifford, I think you're up, man. Giff.
Sure. Well, first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to come out and meet with us today and do this little Google Hangout. But, you know, from the campaign side, obviously the oil and gas industry is a vital part to Louisiana and our national economy as well. And so, you know, how are we going to be reaching out to the oil and gas industry? What are we going to do to get those guys involved and active on the campaign trail?
Yeah, a couple things. Great point. First, let's go straight at what Senator Landrieu is going to be saying. She's going to say that she is a friend of oil and gas, and that's why she should be returned. I will point out that whenever she gets a donation from oil and gas, she turns around and funnels it to people like Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein, people who are against our oil and gas jobs. So if she gets $10,000 and she turns around and gives $10,000 to Barbara Boxer, isn't it ironic the folks that support the oil and gas industry are helping to fund their opposition? So that's number one. Number two, we can also say that the oil and gas industry, if you will, I think has suffered under the Obama administration. So there was a moment in the State of the Union speech where President Obama said that one of his achievements in his term had been to cut the red tape for oil and gas drilling. I almost burst out laughing. I'm thinking, he really can't expect folks to believe that he has been trying to cut our red tape. And as you know, Washington is a little bit of a team sport. The degree that the president has support is the degree that he can put his administration's boot on the neck of our oil and gas industry. And not on the majors. The majors are going to do fine. They'll move to off the shore of Africa. It's going to be the oil and gas service industry, the independents, that are going to be particularly affected. So what we need to do and are doing is going to those independent producers, those service industries, pointing out to them that this administration, when it puts its boot on the neck of the majors, doesn't hurt them. It hurts our small independents and our oil and gas service industries, more particularly the people they employ. That we will work to create a robust domestic oil and gas industry for the jobs it creates and the economic prosperity it develops. Again, Senator Landrieu will claim the same thing. Just look at her donation list and see everything that she has given to those who hate our industry and figure out whether or not she's not saying one thing here and doing something else in Washington, D.C., doing one thing, saying one thing in Louisiana, doing another in Washington.
One of the things I've heard you say that I really like is that there's not a vote for the oil and gas industry that she will make that you won't make, but it's all those other things and Obamacare and all the other votes and all the other ways that it impact our business that end up being really hurtful to those same oil and gas companies she's saying she's supporting.
Absolutely. It's those small service industries that are having to deal with the regulation and the taxes of Obamacare and other things. Man, you can hurt a small business in multiple ways. Thanks, Giff. Say, Scott Sternberg. I think I'm trying to log on to Scott, but he's not coming.
Ask him if he can chat his question to you.
Hey, Scott, if you can hear me, chat your question to me, and I'll answer a couple Twitter feeds, okay? First, regarding our campaign, someone asked, are we raising money? Yeah, we're doing pretty well. Thanks for those on the line who have helped and those who will. We have about $2.5 million cash on hand before last quarter. We are going to finish this quarter at the end of this month, and we'll do extremely well. And if you will, that's going to be an exclamation mark that the people in Louisiana want change. We've had, I think, 4 or 5, maybe 6 fundraisers in 4 or 5 different cities in Louisiana. So we can see broadly geographically, from a broad geographic distribution, people want change. I'll say one more thing, man. It's pretty cool. We sent out an email asking for donations or a letter. We would get someone writing back, 90 years old on fixed income, saying she didn't have much to give, but she would give what she could because she is so concerned about the future of our country. This is a 90-year-old who could be saying, leave us alone, but believes enough in our country to contribute to a change in the status quo. It's pretty cool. We're going to have good numbers.
Hey, Congressman.
Hey, Scott.
Can you hear me now?
I can, buddy.
Great, great. I was wondering how, as a senator, you're going to help young entrepreneurs in New Orleans.
Yeah. First, you can help young entrepreneurs all over, not just in New Orleans. And part of that is going to be your tax basis. Part of that is going to be the regulatory environment. So let's just start with Obamacare. Obamacare is going to make someone in his 20s pay 2 to 5 times more for his insurance than he would in a regular free market. So maybe 5 times as much he will be paying. Now that means that there's going to be less money available for him to start his business. The debt and deficit, which the president is so casual about, is obviously going to increase the cost of borrowing in the future. So when that, frankly, you got to just borrow money to pay the debt. When that young entrepreneur is a little bit older and begins to try and raise capital to take his or her company to greater scale, the cost of borrowing, according to the Congressional Budget Office, is going to be raised substantially by the debt that we now have in front of our country. The regulatory environment. Some industries, new media, for example, is kind of lightly regulated. Others is heavily regulated. There's a John Marshall quote regarding taxes that I've paraphrased. The power to tax and the power to regulate is the power to destroy. The regulations being put out by this administration greatly exceed any previous Republican or Democratic administration. And so if you're in one of those industries which is under the regulatory gun, we can absolutely help by beginning to repeal, withdraw some of that regulatory jihad that this administration has had out there. I could go on, but a lot of that is on the, those are the federal issues. Tax reform is going to be incredibly important to young entrepreneurs. And so Republicans are advancing a tax reform that has been promoted as being promoting of economic growth, and that's something we'll continue to push. And I can go into detail if people are interested in that. Glenn.
Yes.
Hi, man.
Can you hear me?
I can, buddy.
Okay, great. So I have a question as well along the entrepreneurial subject. I just moved from Houston back to New Orleans. Specifically, I'm a tech entrepreneur, and I moved back for the digital media tax credits, as long as family. And I wanted to know along those subjects, I've been hearing back and forth about these tax credits, both, I know there's a film tax credit, but more on the digital side. They may not last. They may not be around for a while. I know that's a little zoned in on the entrepreneurial subject, but what's your take on all of that?
That's all state. That's going to be all state-based. which is going to be, frankly, economic development that the state has put out there. On the federal level, those aren't so much the issues. They just aren't. So
Gotcha.
you're going to be more kind of where Scott was in terms of how do we decrease your cost of health care, decrease your burden of regulation.
Great. Thank you.
Guys, I have to go argue for that amendment. I think I'm going to turn this over to Joel and to Jared to speak about the campaign. I'm sorry to leave, but again, they just scheduled this amendment, and it's worth an extra $500 million to every year to our state if it manages to pass. So thank you all.
My name's Joel DeGrotto. I'm the campaign manager for Cassidy for Senate. Just so you guys know, and some of the things that Bill sort of talked about is as soon as he announced in April, we hit the ground running. And we've really tried to sort of build slow and steady, and you guys are an integral part of that, this coalition, and we're going to have other coalitions we're going to roll out to show how this is really a consensus-building campaign. Some of the other coalitions we're going to hopefully work on soon is a veterans and military coalition, and maybe a medical coalition of doctors and medical professionals who can speak to why they think Bill's run is so important for their industry, for their way of life, and for those things. So those are some of the things we're working on right now. We've already got a lot of members signing up, but we just haven't launched them yet. We appreciate you guys being our initial launch. And so what we really wanted to do with this, obviously the time constraints of the congressman's voting schedule and just things coming up with his day job is we just wanted to have this conversation to get it started. So we really appreciate you guys joining us for this effort, and we really appreciate you being part of the process. What we'd really ask for you guys to do, besides telling us what issues matter and what things we should be doing, would be to just help sort of do the word of mouth for us for about Bill and his campaign in all your different regions. And as much as you are social media active or active in sort of the social media platforms, if you could help drive people to our Facebook page, our website, so that we can communicate with them. We're very active and aggressive from the campaign in trying to communicate and talk and share pictures and all the things that we'd like to do for a tech forward campaign. So on that, and I want to thank you guys for being part of this initial Google Hangout. Obviously, we hope to do these again, and hopefully after this one will be a little bit more smooth. But I thought it was pretty good for what we tried to do. And thank you guys again for being a part of it, and thank you for being a part of our coalition for this campaign. We really believe that Bill has the best message and the ability to beat Senator Landrieu, because it's very important that we return the Senate back to Republican control so that we can start changing the direction of things in Washington. So thank you guys very much.